Thank you, Deputy Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to address this House. Before I raise these very important questions relating to the Pukpuk Treaty, I want to take this time to acknowledge the presence of my constituents from Guinea Primary School, who are in the gallery today. And my constituents from other institutions like Southbridge as well. Deputy Speaker, before I do, I want to firstly start by acknowledging the efforts of the good Defense Minister and his Secretary to open public discussions on the treaty by addressing the nation on talkback. I was able to watch a live stream version of this and have taken the Minister's advice and sought questions and concerns from my constituents. And there have been many questions raised and comments both positive and negative. Our job as legislators is to take every serious concern.
So I interrupt you to ask. Your question is to the Minister for Defense,
My question is to the Prime Minister.
Prime Minister.
Yes, because the issue will cover two important sectors. That is the Ministry of Defense and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs.
Go ahead.
So our job as lawmakers, Mr. Speaker, is to take every serious concern into consideration and ensure there is widespread support for the decisions we make on behalf of our people. So the questions I have are about sixfold. The first one to the Prime Minister is that a serious concern raised by my constituents is that this treaty was not tabled and debated in Parliament before it was signed by this government. Why the rush? Were there extenuating circumstances that the people should be aware of? Is Papua New Guinea under threat? Are we going to war? Hence the urgent and immediate need to execute a treaty of such prominence and caliber with our Australian counterparts for their military support and interventions. The second question is, this treaty focuses on traditional military interoperability and external threats, which arguably align more with Australia's interests rather than Papua New Guinea's. Most pressing internal security issues such as tribal violence and law and order. We need more able-bodied and trained police and defense personnel to keep our people safe. We don't need to be losing the most capable Papua New Guineans to foreign nations. I see how the agreement can help build a more professional defense force.
The Honourable Minister for Defense, what's your point of order?
Thank you. The Prime Minister will answer the question as asked, but just want to make it very clear that the Deputy Prime Minister of Australia made a comment in that by 1st of January next year, recruitment will start, but that is while we putting the process together to get PNG citizens to go and serve in the ADF. While we're doing that, PNG citizens who have PR status will be the first
Honourable Minister,
to join the ADF.
Honourable Minister, I will interrupt and stop you from that point of order. It's like you are now replying to the questions raised by the member. The question is raised to the Prime Minister, so I will not allow for that point of order. I will allow the Honourable Member to continue.
That is correct, but I was just providing some clarity on the statement that is made.
The Honourable Prime Minister will answer to that question. So, Honourable Member.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. The third question, but can the Prime Minister advise this House how this treaty will help to stabilize our country's biggest threat, which is a threat from within? Our biggest threat is not from external forces, but our bigger threat is from within. Our people, the intermingling and tribal mixes that are happening on a daily basis, thanks to a most celebrated program of Connect PNG. I see how this agreement can help. How can the Papua New Guinea Defence Force retain top-tier personnel given that the treaty seeks to provide a much more attractive recruitment avenue for a foreign force? There's also been discussions about recruitment. The Deputy Prime Minister of Australia and Minister for Defence himself, in an interview, suggests that even that recruitment is limited to Papua New Guineans with permanent residency in Australia. So it is not really open for Papua New Guineans in Papua New Guinea to participate. To the good Prime Minister, is that Papua New Guinea military experts warn that focusing resources on Australian priorities could hinder the organic development and professionalisation of the PNG Defence Force. The PNG Defence Force currently suffers from poor funding and low operational readiness, and the treaty's terms might further weaken its independent capacity. So can the Prime Minister tell this House how the government plans to avoid this outcome? A clear example is our premium training facility at Goldie Barracks within Hirikwayari. The facilities have all dilapidated. There is no attention, no real interventions from our Papua New Guinea government. So is this treaty going to assist the upgrade of the road to Goldie Barracks, the upgrade of the training facilities, the general upkeep for staff and also trainees, and the once upon a time used swimming pool for the kids in Goldie? The fifth question, Mr. Speaker, is that the Pukpuk Treaty fundamentally changes Papua New Guinea's non-aligned foreign policy by legally obligating it to defend Australia, as if they needed our help. In a region with intense strategic rivalry between US and its allies, which include Australia and China, a universal foreign policy allows Papua New Guinea to engage with all parties based on our own national interests at the forefront. This prevents us from being forced into taking sides, which could compromise its sovereignty or damage other important relationships that we have on the international scene. It allows us to focus on domestic priorities and addressing them with multiple partners. That is the benefit of friend to all, enemy to none. So the good Prime Minister assure this House that this treaty will not impact our ongoing development partnerships, if at all, and be very clear on this. The next question to the Prime Minister, Mr. Speaker, is that despite early uncertainties, the AUKUS, AUK-US Security Pact is proceeding with the leaders of the United States, United Kingdom and Australia reaffirming their commitment to the deal earlier this month. So the plan for Australia to acquire nuclear power submarines remains in place. The Pukpuk Treaty, as it stands, grants Australia access to PNG's military facilities and areas under an agreed facilities and areas framework, which would include naval bases for naval vessels and submarines. This is explicitly detailed in the Pacific Island neighbouring in the treaty and is intended to facilitate defence cooperation and modernisation of the PNG Defence Force. As highlighted by many of our PNG Pacific Island neighbours, there is significant regional sensitivity and trauma surrounding nuclear issues due to past nuclear weapons testing. Papua New Guinea is a signatory to the South Pacific Nuclear Free Zone, also known as the Treaty of Rarotonga. PNG signed this treaty on September 16, 1995, and ratified it on September 15, 1989. Can the good Prime Minister assure this House that Australia will not place nuclear submarines in our waters for any purposes during the time frame of this treaty? Can the Prime Minister assure this House that Papua New Guinea is not planned or will be used again by a war between foreign parties on our soil, and thereby risking the lives of our people, the civilians and the life that we are hoping to develop since 1975 or since the first white man landed on these shores, and the life that we now know. And finally, Mr. Speaker, according to the reports in Australian media, under the Submarine Rotational Force West initiative, US and UK nuclear-powered submarines will rotate through the HMAS Stirling naval base in Western Australia. This rotational presence, Mr. Speaker, beginning as early as 2027, will allow Australian crews to gain experience operating and sustain nuclear technology. Could the Prime Minister assure this House that Australia and its allies will not conduct training exercises in our territorial waters with these nuclear submarines? Finally, Mr. Speaker, through this treaty and in the process of engaging in this treaty, a newspaper article of great concern was published by our local media that a particular district were a recipient of 20 million Australian dollars for support under the treaty. Is it also the case that many of us in this House will be receiving that endowment of 20 million kina each under this treaty? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Prime Minister.
All right, Mr. Deputy Speaker, let me take this time to thank the member for Hiri Koeri for asking a series of important questions. I wish he has my number. I wish he had sent me earlier the 7 questions in writing so I could do justice to the worthiness of the question. But nonetheless, and when he's possibly here, he could understand the magnitude of trying to respond on your feet to a series of important questions like this. I advise all members of Parliament to get a good response. It is advisable you sometimes utilize the provision of a standing order to put questions on notice. So befitting response could be rendered to respond to such an important question. Nonetheless, 7 questions were asked. I try to do summary succinctly as much as possible without averting the core issues. First and foremost, Mr. Speaker, in respect to the treaty and the ratification process, by the way, to all children from Guinea who are here, Dabai Namana, I'm so happy to see all of you here. Guinea is a village that is closer to my heart, and I look forward to visiting you sometimes into the future. I first visited Guinea village in 1989 or 1990. I have a family friend there, and I want to say thank you to the kids, the headmistress, headmaster, and the teachers for bringing children into our precinct. Your members ask a very important question. Our Constitution, Mr. Deputy Speaker, Section 206 of our Constitution, and lawyers amongst us, including the member himself, can have the leisure of reading Section 206 of our Constitution. Section 2 of our Constitution was the basis in which the 1975 Visiting Forces Act was launched by our founding fathers of our country. Under that Visiting Forces Act, incongruent with the Defence Act, many foreign forces have partnered PNG Defence Force since 1975, period. The construct of this treaty is not outside of the ambit of our national constitution, totally within the provision of our national constitution. Within Section 206 and the Visiting Forces Act, this treaty was constructed. Mr. Deputy Speaker, in as far as our own relations with Australia is concerned, the 3 battalions we have, the Moyam Battalion, the Taroma Battalion, the Igam Battalion, as well as the headquarters at Marape Barracks and the training depot or training facility at Taroma, was part of the Australian government set up prior to 1975. At 16 September 1975, they became Papua New Guineans. Connotes a shared history with Australia. Like we have defense relations with all bilateral nations, our country have utilized the provision of Section 206 to allow for visiting forces to land in our shores and partner our defense force. In Australia, we had 1977 status of force agreement under then Marape government. Some 47 years later, in 2013, I beg your pardon, 37 years later if I'm not wrong. I'm not as smart as some of you, and my mathematics do rush. In 2013, the then government under Prime Minister O'Neill signed the Defence Cooperation Agreement, an elevation from status of force agreement to a Defence Cooperation Agreement, connoting again that they were the frontiers. When you have Defence Cooperation Agreement, it's elevated from status of force agreement. And so in 2013, we arrived at that juncture in our two military relationship. And in 2025, at request by PNG government and not request by Australia government, put it down in writing. And I'm willing to go down on this. As Prime Minister, my number one job is, first and foremost, I'm the number one security officer of this country. Act from external threat and internal threats. And so, as the Chief Security Officer of this country, we invited a force that we can read, we can speak, we have shared moral values with, to be part of our construct, elevating from a Defence Cooperation Agreement to now a treaty-level relationship. By one stroke of a pen, we've elevated PNG Defence Force capacity to the Australian force capacity. Mr. Deputy Speaker, my job at night, I'm not just localized worrying what territory will be. I worry about the 800 kilometers of land border we have. I worry about the 50+ kilometers of river border we have. And all in all, the 3 million square kilometers of water we have in our country. Not to mention the airspace. In the future, war is going to be fought at airspace. If future war does take place. And I asked this question, I put the same question to all of us. What is it there for PNG Defence Force to contribute to Australia? In the event that there is an engagement today, tomorrow, under the Treaty Alliance, except possibly our geography. Capacity-wise, we have nil, or if not little, to provide to Australia in this treaty. We requested to the Australian government at the present state of our defence force. And you have every right, Mr. Speaker, the members have every right to ask me. PNG government should be investing funds in it. I beg you, if we are to invest fund, all of you forgo your DSIP and everything else, and let's invest $1 billion kina each every year to capacitate our PNG Defence Force to stand up. Our nation is not a small nation. Our nation is not like a small island nation tucked away in the middle of the Pacific or ocean elsewhere. We've got 3 million square kilometers of ocean to defend, over 10 million people to protect, over 462,840 square kilometers of land to defend. That's big. That's big. Systematically, and our defense plan is such where systematically the next 10 years, we must build a defense force to men on strength, 7,000. Reserve men, 3,000. And by this signing, hopefully within the next 10 years, we got 10,000 Papua New Guinean bloods who live in Australia and live in PNG, fly down, work, and become citizens in Australia to be serving as Australian Defence Force personnel, reporting to the Australian Defence Commander. But at call, in times of stress, at major call, they could be redeployed back in PNG. But sustenance, salary, capacity, operation, including flying planes, handling ship, technology, drone. Whilst Australia may not be at the superpower capacity, don't ignore the fact that they have mid-sized capacity defense force. So it is in this context to capacitate our defense force to defend our sovereignty at the earliest so that we work domestically the next 10 years. I want to give assurance to this Parliament. This does not compromise our sovereignty one bit. The treaty was made public. As soon as we signed in Canberra, it was posted for the whole world to see, including all our bilateral partners. To date, no bilateral partner has an issue with this one. Every mature nation knows totally that nation and nation enter into partner. It is within the call of its nation to enter into partner. With other partner nations, they feel compatible. They feel they're in alignment.
Prime Minister, we have a point of order. Member for Chuabe.
Mr. Speaker, the good Prime Minister has quoted Section 206 of the Constitution, which clearly states that no member of the Defence Force shall serve in another nation, except where the NEC or the head of state gives the okay. This, to me, reeks executive overreach. The good question by the member for Hiri-Koari was, why wasn't this brought into Parliament? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the process is on foot. This Parliament would have the privilege of the process of ratification. Every treaty is eventually brought into the Parliament. And I am reminded that it's Section 117. I may be wrong. Please don't quote me. You just quote me on a constitution. I'm not a constitutional lawyer, so I can run the risk of being quoted incorrectly here. But based on advice, every decision we take, government of the day, ministers don't do work on their own. We propose, and our state instrumentalities check the proposal. When every law is ticked off, then most important man, state solicitor of the land, ticks off that this proposal is congruent, is in order. Let's go down the path and get upon. I want to assure this country, this House, and a good member for Hiri-Koari, we are cognizant to our national duties to be compliant to our national constitution. Our constitution allows for this path to be taken, all done in the interest of capacitating our defense force at the earliest in our own national plan within the next 10 years. 7,000 men on strength in PNG Defense Force, our PNG Defense Force own working condition, including police and CIS, will be relooked at, so they stepped up to match Papua New Guineans who are selected through an independent process to go and work in Australia Defence Force. By the time this is fully matured, you would have 17,000 Papua New Guineans who are working either in Australia, reporting to Australian Defence Force Commander, or 7,000 of them reporting to PNG Defence Force Commander. Among some of the negative decisions we took sometimes back 23 years ago, we eroded the value of our defence force to almost nothing. We eroded the value of a defence force to almost 19 in 2001, 2002. Well, this is different, to capacitate our PNG Defence Force, to stand as symbol of our sovereignty. And I want to throw in a caveat. Next year, as we work through, we will demilitarize, we'll establish Bougainville as a demilitarized zone where Defence Force will not enter, but the construct of PNG Defence Force is to make sure we secure the land, water, territory of our country. And the rub-on effect, a ripple-on effect, is a positive ripple-on effect to police, CIS, and the entire ambience of the law and justice sector infrastructure in our country. I want to ask this House if the Speaker could give me the indulgence of picking up the copy of the question, and in a response through print media, we could make a fullest response, so every member of Parliament and the country is satisfied to the answer of this question. But also, when the ratification is brought to this House, it will place a notice. Each of you will have a thorough read-through the entire treaty document. There's a provision. I think the member did ask on the non-alliance standing we have. from time to time within the ambit of non-alliance, our defense must engage with other defense forces to work with. This doesn't compromise the non-alliance. Right in the heart of this treaty is a provision that says, at the point of critical decision-making of military engagements, the two defense commanders will make the call. The two defense commanders will make the call. And this treaty is subject to review on an annual basis. Our PNG Defense and Australia Defense Force forums will carry on to govern the framework to make sure that the intention of this treaty doesn't suppress our two nations' sovereignty, but protect our two sovereignty as we work side by side, step by step, a step into the future. Something you can never ignore is geography and close proximity. Unfortunately, or fortunately, we are here stuck with each other forever. We have to make do with what we have, and we choose, this side choose to work with Australia to prop up our defense, work side by side, strengthen to protect our shared space in Pacific and on the face of the planet. Thank you.